Another round of Let's Play with the Assholes. Which, admittedly, sometimes a little bit of it is fun. Just a little bit. You don't want too much. Anyway, this guy. Oh, asshole. Yeah. So, the subject of these value relativists. First off, I really find that the whole idea of it so offensive. That people who are value relativists, who are conceding they have no authority they're no closer to anything called the truth because there is no truth. There is no finding the truth. The truth doesn't exist. That notion is in of itself repugnant. That somebody would actually suggest that you should listen to me, or I have some argument to make or something, when you have no confidence that what you're saying is closer to something called a truth, because you don't believe the truth exists. You don't believe there's a correct answer to any of these questions. So why would you tell other people what to do, or suggest to other people, or fuck with their destiny at all? Why would you feel that's your place? I mean, there's just something so pompous and arrogant and obnoxious in this idea that there's no truth and yet I'm going to talk about it. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. Really crazy shit.
Now, the obvious answer to this scenario is because suffering is experienced subjectively. There is no objective standard by which to judge suffering because...
Okay, so it's just so silly. Yes, we all have individual food tastes. Sometimes you'll put things in your mouth that would make me vomit, and perhaps vice versa. So that's not the subject. The subject is the process of vomiting, or is the process of, having some sword stuck in your neck, or whatever the thing would be. We know that there are certain sensations that are common to all sentient creatures, that you can find the button to push on it, the code, the numbers, that will create what is called this suffering sensation, that we can put in a class and say this is intrinsically and fundamentally negative. Nothing wants to be in this state. Every biological organism that possesses the capacity to manifests the state to avoid things. Not because it's a good thing, because it's a bad thing. It is a fundamental design in the very rudimentary nature of the matter is validating the fact that this is a negative state, because the state itself creates a reflexive reaction. Even if it's a thought process, it's still a reflex, but anyway, of learning. And so it's quite obviously the whip is a whip, the carrot is a carrot. They are distinctly different, and we can understand that difference. To say we can't understand it objectively, rationally, logically, and sensibly, and can only understand it in some metaphorical, I don't really know what it means sense, is just plain silly.
It's an experience unique to the individual. Each person suffers differently, and each person has different thresholds for pain.
That's not the subject. The subject is whether people have pain and whether they suffer. It's not what makes them suffer. Again, this has been repeatedly stated over and over and over again. It doesn't matter what makes you feel. It's what you feel that matters, that has the value. Duh.
This response, however, seems a bit too easy, and I don't think Andy would have asked me a question he probably already knows my answer to, which got me thinking, maybe there's something more I'm supposed to take a...
Well, whatever. I guess Andy's scenario was that somehow there's some equal bottom you can go to where everybody feels exactly the same repulsion and exactly the same amount of attraction, which is kind of just almost idiotic. But it really doesn't matter how loud the sounds are. We know the difference between a C and a B. We can tell the difference. The loudness doesn't define character, right? I mean, how slowly I say a word doesn't change the meaning of the word, does it?
Away from this. So I did think about it a little bit, and in order to come up with a more meaningful conclusion, we have to analyze what the answer to the scenario implies.
This is apparently a scripted video. Huh. Okay, I'll play a couple more minutes, seconds, and get out of here. This is kind of a waste of time.
Clearly, it shows that judging suffering as the be-all, end-all standard for determining moral truth is faulty.
Be-all, end-all standard for declaring moral truth. It's just, the only statement here is that it's the currency. You don't understand this? You don't understand that this is the value, the one true value, that all the gold is relative to this, the diamonds are relative to this, everything that has value is relative to this standard currency, that this is the real currency, this is what the dollar actually buys. This is like if you had a gold standard, this would be the gold. Okay, is the idea of a sentient creature's welfare. That is what we trade every day. When you make a bargain in China, what makes the bargain significant? Oh yeah, that's the labor of the Chinaman. And the welfare of the Chinaman. We all kind of are aware of that. There was slavery for thousands of years, as you acknowledge. Why did it exist? Because there was value, comfort to be gleaned from slavery. Not because it made fake things, but because it made sentient beings. It changed their comfort state. You don't understand that that's the reason? You don't think people had slaves or harems full of bought and sold women because it changed their comfort state? That's the value. Sentient comfort.
Because everyone's emotional experience in this reality is different. We all take in and interpret these emotional experiences separately,
and we all know the difference between a unpleasant sensation and a pleasant sensation. Again, no one ever has made the argument that you must enjoy eating strawberries. No video has anybody made where any of this subjective crap has ever been the subject. The subject of suffering, okay, is already conceding individuation in terms of interpretation of what you think, okay, what makes you feel suffering. Again, that has always been conceded, that individuals will be tormented by different activities. That is not the subject. Although there are common activities for which 99.99999999999% of people will find horribly uncomfortable, like being in a concentration camp. You can't understand that? That walking a trail of tears as you watch your family die. That all sentient humans can figure out that that would be no fucking fun. You can't be this fucking much of a douchebag. I mean, this has been said over and over again. Why would you sit there and put these fucking words in people's mouths? And fuck you, Metamorph, for making a positive comment on this douchebag's video. I mean, fuck you.
Emotions don't exist in a vacuum. Neither does suffering, for that matter.
Well, I guess it does, for that matter. It exactly does. We happen to be in a spatial vacuum, fuckhead. The planet Earth happens to be in a spatial vacuum. And yet the suffering does fucking exist. It's happening on the surface of the planet Earth. When there was just rocks and lava, it was a different planet than when sentient beings rose out of the mud, you stupid dumb cunt. And you can't tell the difference? You can't tell the welfare difference, the value difference of a planet populated by zillions of fucking sentient organisms and a planet that is lava and rocks? No, you're not that stupid. You're just you have so many fucking words shoved up your ass, okay, that you can no longer tell the difference between one and the other. And you just start puking these little blobs of shit as if it means something. This is gobbledygook. This is goddamn, again, a 6-fucking-year-old can tell that suffering is important. A significant value component. A 6-fucking-year-old could more reliably describe the truth than you fucking anal assholes. Oh, man. Enough. So back to the horror. Wank? And do you really think your wanks are worth it?
So you're making quantitative judgments without any standard metric, again. So I can just say, yeah, my wanks are totally worth it.
Okay, so he says he can jerk off, and that's worth somebody dying of radiation sickness. Fine. That makes lots of sense to me. Sure, it's worth the slavery. Slavery was worth it because people got to wank off with silk tissues. Wow. God, you people suck. You just suck.
Gotta love those silly addictions.
And then frivolous, the argument so I mean, that's the depth of the argument. Gotta love those silly addictions. Okay, so we'll satisfy our addictions, greenhouse gas ourselves to death, create a horrific dystopia, and you'll feel all proud of yourselves. Wow, we sure did that the human way. Way to go. Oh, man. Frivolous function, that everything we do is pretty much... I apologize to the universe for my human genetic code. If there's some paper I could sign, okay, to disinherit myself, disassociate myself entirely from anything human related, to be anything near a member of this disgusting and grotesque organism, please allow me the opportunity to willfully become a goddamn sponge than one of these fucking goddamn cunt bastards. Much for... Oh, shit. The frivolous purpose of replicating a molecule.
Everything that we do is in service of this quote-unquote frivolous purpose.
Everything we do. So when Einstein studied physics and came up with E equals mc squared, he was really working on trying to replicate his molecule. No, he wasn't.
In what sense is it frivolous? I mean, frivolity, of course, is a judgment that a human subject places on something, is it not?
Yes, exactly. That it's very weak. Okay, our gratifications are crude, superficial, and there's another word like crude that's even better. Crass. They're crass. Yeah. All right. We don't give gold medals for helping old ladies cross the street the fastest. No, we give them for silly nonsense. And that makes us silly nonsense.
Places on something that has no meaning to them. But if this thing is the driving force behind everything that we do.
Right, and it just might as well be a pink balloon. You might as well just be, well, drooling retards, but yeah, I guess you haven't evolved too far from that standard.
Including ascribing meanings to things, etc. I mean, I find meaning in sexuality. People find meaning in playing with their kids, right?
Again, it's not the subject, but yeah, and the fact is these are all very superficial pleasures, okay, and it's part of the addiction. That's the word addiction means, is that for a superficial gratification, you're compelled, okay, because the absence of it all of a sudden becomes an obsession. And I think everybody kind of understands that scenario in the sense that you want something for years and then you get it and then you say, wow, what a headache this is. What else is there? What's the next thing? Yeah, because we're made to be dissatisfied by design, not satisfied. We're not made to lie comfortably in the couch.
So, if everything is for the purpose of replicating this molecule, quote unquote, in what sense is it frivolous? It seems to be a contradictory statement.
Well, replication for the sake of replication, it's circular. Circular things tend to be frivolous things in the sense that there's nothing redeeming in there. It's just circular, it's self-justifying, which tends to be evidence of lack of function. How come that argument doesn't make you feel something?
It's not about my feelings.
Well, you said it was in the beginning of the video. You said it was about your feelings.
I didn't evaluate any argument on the basis of how I feel.
Well, you did. You told us how you feel about it. It feels like, that's what you said, it feels like the ontological argument.
Propose any statement on the basis of how I feel. Again, misreading.
Survival for the sake of survival. Perpetuation for the sake of perpetuation. How come you don't feel something about that? Like, somehow that doesn't sound quite right.
It doesn't sound right, actually. And the reason why it doesn't sound right is quite simple. Survival and perpetuation are not means. So we don't survive for the sake of survival. We do other things as means to the end of survival. Survival is an end.
Yeah, whatever. Oh, word game much? Yeah, no, the end is survival. The means is what you will be required to have survival. You breathe, you eat. These are things that are means to the end. And yeah, but they're means that are all necessary. So let's not pretend. And they all exist for only the purpose of surviving the DNA molecule. So it's not even about your personal survival or longevity. It's just about the replication of the molecule, and that is the design. The salmon swims upstream having no idea that it's signed up for a death sentence.
In itself. Perpetuation is an end in itself. You're confusing ends and means.
Yeah, I guess I would just say, no, I'm rubber, you're glue, buddy. Yes, I'm being a bit mocking, because this is just so glib. Like I said, the most important question I think the human race could possibly ask itself is, are we doing good enough? Wow, I'm gonna love this answer. Okay, let's see what he says to that. Like there's some other more important question, but let's see what he says. This ought to be good, right? I mean, this ought to be good, right? Come on. Let's see what he does with it.
The most important question was, what is the value of the human endeavor, or human life, or however you phrased it? Because those aren't the same question. Are we doing good enough? No, we're not doing good enough. Probably isn't such a thing as doing good enough.
Probably isn't such a thing as doing good enough. Oh, so why are we keeping the engine running? So the car's not running well enough, but we'll just run it anyway. We're losing money, but just keep doing it. Why? Because we can't tell stupid people to stop having babies. Oh. Gee, that's a great reason. Not.
I'm perfectly prepared to concede that it is immaterial to the point.
Well, I think it's pretty material, really. Yeah, it's not good enough. If it's not good enough, you don't buy it. You don't pay money for it, right? You don't purchase things that aren't good enough, right? How are we doing? And if you're going to answer we're doing just fine, or we're doing good enough, or that we have done good enough ever, I think you're full of shit.
I would think I was full of shit too, actually.
So why are you being an asshole? You've just conceded the argument. So why are you arguing as if you don't concede the argument? You have just conceded it's not good enough. You know that. You don't seem to have any doubt about it. You said it pretty aggressively. You didn't have to value relative it all over the place. You didn't have to dissect it into a zillion pieces. You kind of just said, yeah, okay, I conceded. It is a mess. So why would you perpetuate a mess?
But please cite me the precise timestamp on my video where I said anything like, we're doing good enough, or we have done good enough, or just anything like it.
Well, I guess the only thing like it would be the simple solution is to not to purchase something that's not good enough. And if the craziest, poorest, dumbest, lowest IQist, craziest fucknuts are the only ones making us purchase it, then why don't we stop them? Then you can be an anti-natalist too.
Specific timestamp, please.
And there's very little prospect it's going to get better.
I don't know what standard you measure that by, but
Oh, and it's just sort of a logical thing. It's not really a standard thing, right? It's just the violence and technology thing. Doesn't look like there's any possible way those two lines will converge in a good way. So that's one of them right there. And then you got the whole fuel problem. The whole imagination problem, right? We really don't have any other agenda than, you know, where are the fuckables? There's really not a whole lot going on in the average little wheelie-dealy called a human.
I'm just prepared to agree with that. It's probably all downhill from here. It's an appeal to consequence, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an appeal to let's reduce the mess. Let's gracefully do this. Let's not do this as bad as possible. Let's do it as good as possible. Yes, it's an appeal to let's not be assholes. Let's actually take control and do it right instead of wrong. Gee, it's an appeal to right over wrong. Wow. How outrageous. How dare I use my brain to come up with a concept like that? Whew, man, I am just so edgy. So he starts talking about Schopenhauer, which is kind of useless. He is dead, you know.
You heard it here first, folks. The ideas of dead people are useless.
Well, I just mean that, you know what, it would be, you know how they would be more useful? Is if we heard their after-death testimony. I mean, I'd love to hear, like, Nietzsche's novel of the after-death. You know, the syphilis go insane chapter. You know, and how that was all worth it. I mean, that would give them a little more integrity. But yeah, there is sort of an obnoxiousness, you know what I mean, in throwing dead people's words around, you know, especially when all of it is in this time dilation thing, right? I mean, some of the quotes are when they're 20, some of the quotes are when they're 50. And do we get is there really balance to that? Does anybody ever say the quote like this is this is a quote from when he was 65 years old versus a quote when he was 25 years old? Because that's sort of a context too here, isn't it? Yeah, it sort of is. Argument, yeah, well, this idea that utilitarians have this notion. So he agrees that reducing harm or suffering is good. So it's good to reduce suffering. But that isn't really a good, because that's not an affirmative good.
I didn't say it wasn't a good on the grounds that it wasn't an affirmative good. It's devoid of content because it's a negation. There's no affirmation.
Right. It's void of content. Right. So preventing a nuclear power plant from melting down is void of content. Preventing a nuclear power plant from melting down is void of content. That's a rhetorical statement. Yeah, that's what that is.
Present in it.
You see, so preventing harm, that's not of any real value.
Again, please point me to the timestamp.
Maximum. Well, it's in the video, all right. I think I played your clip on that one, didn't I? But it doesn't matter. But I mean, clearly, you said that there has to be this affirmative thing. Those are your. I mean, I didn't misparaphrase you anywhere here. But I mean, yeah, I guess I can find the timestamp if you insist. You know, maybe when everything's done, we'll get to that. But I mean, you did make it clear. You said negating is not affirming, and so you can only do the affirming thing. That's what you said. You said preventing harm is good. Then you had a big but. But it's not affirming. That's what you said. Strike me dead with a gigantic unicorn turd if I'm misquoting you. Nice good stuff, and just don't worry about the bad stuff.
Don't worry about the bad stuff? Where are you getting this from?
You said preventing harm is good, okay, but it's not affirmative. We should do love and touchy-feely shit. That's what you said. I can't believe I have to go back to that horrific video and actually play that tripe. But I will do it when this is over.
It's not in the video that I put up.
Yes, it is. And it'll all work out. Because love cures cancer.
It's not a matter of whether or not it all works out, first of all. Second of all,
yes, it is a matter of whether it all works out. That's the whole fucking point of this whole fucking conversation, is that it has to work out. The nuclear power plant can't melt down. If it melts down, that's called a colossal failure. Okay, the whole objective here is not to have colossal fail.
I don't think it will all work out. All signs point to no.
Well, then you don't... I mean, goddamn. It won't work out. All signs point to no. But yes, people should keep on perpetuating it. Keep grinding those fetuses out. Subject another bunch of unwilling contestants into the game that will not work out. Volunteer for them to play the game that will not work out. I just don't know what to do about how stupid this conversation has gotten. So you can't do something like I said, preventing a harm.
I feel like a broken record, but timestamp, please.
I'll play your fucking clip, okay? I think I did play it, but I'll play it again, or I'll play it. I mean, I accurately paraphrased it. I took fucking notes. It's what you fucking said. I have no doubt a note here. So here's the notes. Utilitarian crap. Nope. Scales reduction. Ad Sermonum. No, that's not it. It must be on the other piece of paper. Well, anyway, I have it. Is a negative way of thinking. That's a negative way of thinking.
Yes, someone in my comments section misunderstood this one as well.
Oh, now we get it. Oh, okay, that's it. There's a misunderstanding, and it's our fault, of course. So it's also the person in the comments misunderstood, and it's his fault, and it's my fault. I misunderstood. You couldn't have possibly said it incredibly inarticulately and maybe just concede, okay, sorry, I used poor choice of words. Sorry. You can't just say that instead of making this accusation that I've somehow misparaphrased you or misunderstood you. Okay, in some sort of overt, sloppy, my-fault way. You couldn't even do that? Shit.
When I say negative, I don't mean you should be positive or you're being negative. That's not the point, right? If I say there is not a chair in my room, that is a negative statement. There is not something, right? If I say there is a chair in my room, I am affirming something.
Well, whatever. The point is, you said, look, preventing harm is good, or preventing suffering is good, but it's not affirmative.
It's an affirmative statement. It has nothing to do with being positive or being you're being negative. There's nothing to do with that, right?
And so, yes, ethics should start with an affirmation. Drinking is fun. Yeah, okay, that's affirmative. Driving is fun. That's affirmative. So let's drive and drink.
So you're suggesting that the statement ethics should begin with an affirmation is identical to the statement. The contents of the ethical is made up of all affirmations.
It was your qualification, okay? You could have just stopped with preventing harm is good and supporting pleasure is good. That might have been a simple thing to say. But you didn't say that, okay? You made this contrary argument as if preventing harm isn't the real value. The real value is in love and honesty. And then that'll fix everything. We don't need to do the negative prevent thing. We don't need to do the risk averse thing. We don't need to do the what's the right word? The economy thing. There's a better word for that. The cost to benefit analysis. You know, we don't need to worry about the cost part. Just do the benefit part. That was your implication.
And every possible synthesis between them. I mean, if anything, ethics is a heuristic for distinguishing affirmations that are valuable and affirmations that are not valuable.
Well, I don't even know. Valuable to who? Right? I mean, jeez, you can't keep doing shit like this. How can you claim a value that now is somehow elevated to some generic term when you are already said that you don't believe there's any such thing as a generic?
It's not. It's just simply not a question, right? Clearly, there is non-parenting here.
So anyway, clearly there is non-parenting here. Damn. Yeah, so I don't know what that means. It's a typical thing. So he's going to tell me what he values. So of course I'm supposed to value what he values.
Yes, I told you what I value. Things that I value. Please show me the timestamp where I say that you should value the same thing.
Preventing suffering is good, but that was one of them. And then I should value, what was the rinky-dink crap? Love. You said I should value that. And honesty, as if I shouldn't just disvalue dishonesty, which makes more sense to me. Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't even have to say the word honesty. We shouldn't even have to expect it.
I mean, it doesn't. It's a total non sequitur.
Anyway, so he thinks love and honesty and kinship and whatever will save the day. So if we all invest in love, honesty, kinship, and whatever, everything will be fine.
Didn't say that everything will be fine if we invest in these things.
Well, then why the bother with it? Why the fuck the bother? The point is, I'm arguing things aren't fine, things aren't going to be fine, that means we have to turn the thing off. You're arguing we shouldn't turn the thing off even though things are not fine and will never be fine. And I think you should give me the reason why we don't turn it off. And you're saying the reason we don't turn it off is love and honesty and kinship and whatever. No, I haven't made a mistake here. Your video was shit, and now you're trying to, reform the shit into a different shape, and it's really not going to fix it. It's still shit. You can't reshape it into something else.
Wasn't advocating love, honesty, kinship, etc.
Yes, you were.
I wasn't advocating those things.
Yes, you were.
I said here are examples of positive values.
As opposed to the negative value of preventing harm or suffering. As opposed to. That seems like the kind of thing where you're saying, do this instead of that. This is affirmative, this is negative. That sounds like a suggestion to me.
And I don't see how... And the fact is that you are elevating the reduction or eliminating of suffering to a point of privilege above every single one of those values. That seems...
Yes, the argument was the thing is too broken. Okay, it's too cost ineffective. That's what I said right at the beginning of my video. I pointed out that's pretty much the subject, is the two-part on the suffering subject. We haven't not really talking about the imposition subject, which is my opinion is a real game ender. Okay, but even without the imposition argument, you still got the two. Okay, too expensive, no buy. Okay, that's my argument. Your counter argument is, yes, it's too expensive, buy it anyway.
To me, to be arbitrary. Didn't say, at no point did I say.
Right, it's arbitrary, except you suggested that preventing suffering is good. And you'll concede that your opinion that preventing suffering is a good is just arbitrary. That would almost cause a convulsion. It's like a computer doing, you know, whatever. 3-bit logic. It just isn't going to work.
That anything is going to work out fine. No point did I say that you should believe that. At no point did I say, hey, we should get on this bandwagon together, man.
And there's so much evidence.
Yeah, but you did say, I don't get it. What is this stupid argument they're making that there's some kind of problem? So, they believe that the game is too expensive, and they're arguing we shouldn't play it anyway. And I'm arguing the game's too expensive, and we should just keep playing it anyway. I mean, why are those two opinions in conflict?
Is that we are so full of love.
Didn't say that there was any amount of evidence that's saying that we are full of love rather than bigotry, or you go on to give a few examples. Didn't say that at all. In fact, it would be a naturalistic fallacy to say that.
Well, I'm just going with your but, okay? This is the but. You offered this alternative. My argument was, let's prevent the harm. You butted that argument with the, well, let's go with the lovey-dovey thing. That's the affirmative approach.
It's the is-ought problem, right? It's not the case that we are or are not filled with love, or however you put it. And therefore, we ought to be filled with them. No, if anything, it is that we are not filled with such things.
Yes, and it's not something we're likely to participate in because we're competitive motherfuckers, and all of those naturalistic reasons you can give for why this will not work as a solution to our problems. And that was just my point. You butted the simple solution, which is let's just prevent the harm and fuck it. And instead you said, no, we have to invest in this love thing and this honesty thing and this whatever thing. And that'll somehow make it okay to keep on playing a stupid game.
We should strive to be filled with them. I mean, it has no bearing, naturalistic fallacy, to say X is how something is. It does not follow that has any bearing on X is how something ought to be.
Well, again, it's just silly to say that, right? I mean, if X is, it's inefficient, it's consuming more than it's producing, then the ought is intrinsic and fundamental. The ought is a necessary logical consequence. You can't logically avoid the ought without making up some special purpose that wasn't in the original statement that was defining the asset values. Clearly, the statement is, it has been determined to be running inefficiently. What there ought, you ought to turn it off, is a statement you can't avoid rationally. There's no way to rationally or logically avoid the logical conclusion that if it is, the steamroller is coming for me. The oughts are already written into the circumstance. As soon as you declare the thing broken, the ought to fix it is an unavoidable conclusion. There's no rational other statement, like you ought to just sit there and let it consume more than it produces. That wouldn't be rational.
And so he thinks that's the way we're all born.
Timestamp, please.
You people don't want to swim for turds? Fuck you. You're going to do it anyway, because I say so.
Where does it follow from the statement that I am not an antinatalist that I think that you must have children? Fuck you.
You're endorsing something somebody else is doing. So if you think, like, say if I think personally I don't want to rape, I don't think rape's a good idea, I think it's an abhorrent, evil thing to do, and so therefore I feel perfectly comfortable telling other people you're not allowed to do it. And so this procreation thing obviously implies, it obviously has implicit in it, fucking with somebody else's welfare in a manner you can't control, and some of those fuckings will turn into rape. They will be a rape. Because some women enjoy being raped, does that mean rape's not bad? I mean, seriously, fuckhead.
You have to do it anyway. Doesn't follow from that. Just because I don't find the arguments persuasive doesn't mean that I'm arguing to coerce you into doing anything.
Well, the point is you're defending those who will coerce. So again, I just don't see any value in people doing videos about things they don't think are right to do, but have no willingness to say they're wrong for somebody else to do. So saying, I don't personally own slaves, but I give every right to everybody else to do it. I mean, there's just no value in your contribution then. If you don't have enough confidence to say that the wrong applies universally or extensively even, then what's the fucking point? Why do you exist as a person who makes comments? Of what value do I glean from your commentary? If it only applies to special goldfish in the special goldfish bowl, why would you sit there and waste our time? I don't live in the special goldfish bowl. I'm not a goldfish. So why would this be relevant if it doesn't extend outside of the goldfish bowl, of your own little personal perception?
Right, so the way to make a good nuclear power plant is just to be really aggressive and go all the way, and don't mess with that risk-averse stuff.
Really? Where are you getting this from?
I mean,
you're misleading affirmative argument. That you must have an affirmative, positive affirmation that you live by, not a negative one of preventing harm. Preventing suffering, I think was the exact words used.
You're calling honesty an attribute?
Honesty is an attribute.
Again, this is one of those things where now I think it's the white space that's actually the thing, right? I think the dishonesty being a negative thing is the real thing. Being honest isn't really a positive. It's just not being an asshole. Yeah.
Is all the cancer, all the nursing home shit, all the horrible, horrible, horrible horrors that happen to people, earthquakes, tornadoes, tsunamis, it's this love thing. Yeah, trust me, it's worth it.
No, I said that I'm not convinced that human suffering is sufficient grounds to produce a world wherein which nothing that I value, or you value for that matter, is present. I mean,
well, that's about the same thing as saying I think it's working. So I don't know how I can take your conflicting statements that 1 minute there was too much suffering and now you're saying no, it is good enough. 1 minute you said it's not good enough, now you say it is good enough. I mean, that's what he did, right? I mean, come on, people.
The definition of value is something that you want to propagate, something that you want to spread in the world. So, or at least that's part of the definition. So I don't know where you're getting that.
Okay, so it's a matter of scales, and that one. Your own mouth. Ugh. Always gets you in trouble because he's basically just saying, I think it's worth it.
No, I didn't say that it's a matter of scales, and
Well, you just said it. You said, I think if you take all this gooey bullshit, this love doing things, fun stuff, it would be, the suffering is worth it. You just said that, and now you're saying the contrary, and then you say it is, and then you say it isn't. What do I do with this shit? There's no way to coherently argue this back and forth.
I think it's worth it. I said that the antinatalist wager was that it is a matter of scales, and the conclusion is that you don't think it's worth it. And the fact of the matter is that...
Yeah, and you said it's not good enough. So you didn't mean it's not good enough to keep doing. You just mean it's not good enough to say it's good? Is that it? I mean, that's not the standard of not good enough. I mean, I think there's no way you could miss that in my statement. I said too, T-O-O. I mean, I made it clear that it's too rotten. Not just a bit rotten, but no way bad enough to worry about.
I can think of at least 5 times in this video so far where you have explicitly said that it's a matter of value, it's a matter of returns, it's a matter of consequences, it's scales.
No, yeah. I've said that it's a matter of the commodities, and I'm saying we're consuming too many emeralds to create our diamond. Yeah. It's not efficient. It's inefficient. It's not productive. It's not good enough. That's the word I use, good enough.
You proceeded to go on and argue, no, it's not worth it, putting it on scales again. And then you say, well, you know, talking about scales is just arbitrary.
I never said that. Ever. Yeah, no, I didn't say putting it on scales is arbitrary. I said you're going to be arbitrary.
I wasn't talking about scales. I was saying that the antinatalist wager is predicated on a certain kind of calculus, a certain kind of weighing out of things, which you've done for the whole bit.
Weighing out of things isn't a scale.
Yeah.
Well, I wrote down the unneeded need is not unneeded. That's sort of his argument. That we somehow need to need our love and our value.
That's not what I said at all. I was arguing against, remember that whole scale thing that you said that I was doing? I was arguing against that scale thing. And I was framing it from the perspective of utilitarian reasoning. That again.
No, you're just doing it from the naturalistic fallacy. It's here, it's the default, so yeah, just leave it alone, or something like that. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, I think we've parsed this into enough millimeters to get, and you have vacillated back and forth in what words you're willing to use. I mean, like I said, you don't, when you say it's too expensive, you don't mean it's too expensive. You accept it. It's acceptable. The suffering is acceptable. It's not unacceptable.
Ethics is a calculus. Ethics is a matter of putting things on scales and weighing out the positives and negatives, cost-benefit analysis. Again, what you have been doing for the whole video. And
yes, and I'll continue to do for the rest of my life. I think it's the only rational approach a brain can apply is a cost-to-benefit analysis. There's no other way to analyze value.
Criticizing that. And I was criticizing specifically the classical utilitarian perspective, that it's about the pursuit of happiness and...
Well, guess what? I'm not a classical utilitarian. I don't value happiness much at all.
And the reduction of suffering. And pointing out that I don't think that human beings want to be happy. I think that we're self-destructive.
More evidence for my team. That means what? So you want to perpetuate self-destructive behavior. I don't think that's rational. I think that's irrational.
Do you disagree?
If we're not here to need love and value, love and honesty, then there won't be anything here to miss it either. But somehow it'll be missed.
Timestamp, please. Specifically where I said it would be missed.
Your argument is that we should do nothing to stop it. So it's leaking oil, it's leaking gas, it's leaking value, it's not cost effective, it's not productive, it is in fact running a deficit, and yet we should maintain it. For what reason?
Yep, that's why I didn't make that argument.
There's a simple question, right? Is the universe substantially diminished because the Martians aren't here loving and telling the truth?
Are you asking me if I think that the universe would be better if there were Martians doing things that complex organisms do? Participate in social configurations? Communication, for instance.
Holocausts.
It's an interesting question.
Machete
I think that the
wars.
universe probably would be better if there were more things that I value in it. At least
Okay, so there'd be more things that he values, even if they are running a deficit, even if they're leaking oil, leaking blood, even if they are not good enough.